From LinkedIn News, I'm Leah Smart, host of Everyday Better, an award-winning podcast dedicated to personal development. Join me every week for captivating stories and research to find more fulfillment in your work and personal life. Listen to Everyday Better on the LinkedIn Podcast Network, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
The HP AI PC breaks language barriers instantly by translating up to 44 languages in real time, powered by the Intel Core Ultra processor. With the right tools, work doesn't have to feel like work. Learn more at hp.com/AIPC.
Hey, I'm Kwame Christian, and you are about to step into the world of Negotiate Anything, the #1 negotiation podcast in the world where we teach you how to make difficult conversations easier while getting more of what you want in the process. Each episode is packed with practical tips and strategies from the experts. We delve into negotiation, conflict resolution, and leadership skills that are crucial in both business and in life. Whether you're closing a deal, managing a team, or navigating personal relationships, Negotiate Anything provides you with the tools you need to succeed. Our conversations are real, relatable, and most importantly, rooted in practicality. So if you're ready to transform your conversations and elevate your negotiation skills, join me on Negotiate Anything. Subscribe and listen on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you love to listen. Let's make every conversation a winning negotiation. Giuseppe, welcome back, my friend.
Hello, Kwame. Delighted to reconnect with you again for another podcast together.
Yes, likewise. You're like I was saying before, your last episode was exceptional and everybody loved it. So we have to bring you back and keep on giving them the hits that they want.
Thank you.
Yeah. So how about you get us started by telling us a little bit about yourself and what you do?
Yeah. Okay. So my name is Giuseppe. As you probably quickly spot from the accent, I am Italian indeed. And I'm a professor in negotiation and influencing, but a bit of a strange professor because I have been working in a corporate environment for over 25 years. And then I've been doing a portfolio career where I was teaching and working at the same time. And since 2018, fully focusing on teaching negotiation and influencing, consulting on negotiation and influencing at business schools and for corporate customer. I'm probably the only one who has been teaching at all the top 10 business schools in Europe. So in SEAD, wow. London Business Schools, Cambridge, Oxford, whatever. Yeah, that's the kind of things that I do. And then on the private life, I am the father of 3 lovely daughters. And but they're quite grown up, 24, 21, and 18.
Very nice, very nice. We appreciate this, and listeners, you see the just the breadth of knowledge and experience that Giuseppe brings to the podcast and to his teachings too. And I'm excited to dig into this new topic of how do we influence internal stakeholders. And I know you've coached a lot of these teams too. You've probably heard this. Sometimes the internal negotiation is the hardest negotiation that they have to do. So can you kind of set the stage and tell people what we're talking about with the internal negotiations?
Yeah, I think, I confirm your finding, Kwame. When I do run workshop for companies and I ask, do you find more difficult internal or external negotiation? The feedback is yes, internal negotiation are more difficult. And there are probably a number of reasons for this. With the internal stakeholder, for instance, there are multiple interfaces. Not that you're only doing the negotiation because you ended up interacting at different level inside the organization. Maybe, for the internal negotiation, we do not prepare for it. We just look at it as one meeting like the other one. Maybe we don't formalize the discussion in the same way. We don't write a meeting report. We don't say what we agreed. I will say also another factor that has an impact is that with internal negotiation, we also carry our own brand or our functional brand. For instance, you see, I know that a number of your listeners work in procurement, and traditionally procurement didn't have a great brand inside the company, right? If I look at the way procurement was seen 30 years ago, okay, if you cannot do manufacturing, then you ended up doing procurement because, that's the easy stuff or whatever. So certainly there is also the branding, that has an impact. I will also say that in external negotiation, a buyer wants to buy, a seller wants to sell. In internal negotiation, be so straightforward. Maybe they want to just continue to do the things the way they've done it without your intervention. And guess what? You have a weak button. Because if you are dealing with external supply, you may say, okay, you know what? I'm going to work with somebody else. But if you need your engineering colleagues, your R&D colleague, or your marketing colleague to do something, it's not going to be so easy to replace them. Okay, you can escalate to more senior management, but it's the kind of things that you want to use with moderation. You could outsource it in a few extreme cases, but let's say most of the time with internal negotiation, you really need to aim for win-win, because you cannot play hard balls the way you may play sometime externally.
You, in such a short period of time, have given so much value, Giuseppe. This is incredible. You've outlined some of the key challenges with negotiating internally, because you're right, we don't prepare for it typically as much as we would for an external negotiation. It's so clear to see, okay, I'm negotiating with a supplier, I'm negotiating with a seller, I'm negotiating with a buyer. I know what I'm here to do. It is a transactional interaction. This is a negotiation. But we don't readily identify those internal conversations as negotiations. So we don't prepare, so we can't perform. And then when you think about the dynamic as well, it's not as clear. The interests are not as clear. It might be emotion. It might be ego. It might just be, I cannot be bothered by having to think about this. Whatever it happens to be, it's a more complex thing because the incentives aren't as clear. I really like that. And then I think a lot of people could identify with the reality of that almost powerless type of feeling that you have sometimes, where you throw up your hands and you say, I didn't expect this to be the hardest part of this negotiation. I haven't even talked to the opposing party yet, but you don't have any alternatives. And exactly. So you feel kind of stuck.
Exactly. And in fact, how well you negotiate internally will then have a big impact on how well you're going to be able to negotiate externally, right? Because if you go into the external negotiation, but this you cannot do it, this is not possible, this is you have to get approval, then, of course, your ability to negotiate a good deal, maybe to negotiate a creative deal, will be limited because you didn't negotiate internally the power to be doing those kind of things with the external supplier. Yeah, so the intricacy of internal and external negotiation are quite complicated.
Yes. Okay. No, this makes sense. And I think this is a really strong start. And so for the people who are listening and they're saying, wow, okay, you are absolutely right. These internal negotiations are really tough for me. Where would you suggest they start?
I think, I will start with probably with a different attitude. I will say that I don't know if you're familiar with this idea of push and pull type of energy. The push type of energy is more about persuading, asserting, the kind of things that many negotiators feel more comfortable with. Says, okay, I'm going to go and push very hard, I'm going to make it happen, etc. Well, when you're dealing with internal negotiation, then the pull type of energy is going to be more effective. And then the pull type of energy is what? It starts with question, it starts with active listening. Before we go into persuasion techniques, influencing approaches, etc., the right mindset is to be more, okay, first, let me build a relationship, let me try to understand the other party, let me put into their shoes. And maybe, if we are working together, if we have to work on the long term, maybe work on the vision, the values, what we want to achieve as a team. and only later go into the toughest part of agreeing the terms and see how we're going to move forward. So a number of negotiators that are good in external negotiation because they are tough, because they use a lot of push energy, may struggle with internal negotiation for this very same skill that plays against them in internal negotiations.
That's incredible. You're absolutely right. And it goes back to what you were talking about at the beginning with the internal branding. And so if you have a reputation as a deal maker, let's say you're in procurement and you go and you do really great deals, you might take that same energy into these internal negotiations. And the same thing that makes you a great deal maker externally is the thing that gets you labeled as a bully internally. And then that leads you to have more resistance with your internal stakeholders.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And
exactly.
Tell me tell me what you think about this, because it seems as though because we don't take the time to prepare, it's almost like we don't have the same level of respect or appreciate the gravity of those internal negotiations. And so they kind of sneak up on us. And so we find ourselves with a very short timeline saying, oh man, I was supposed to talk to Giuseppe about this months ago, but I need to get him to change his mind today, immediately, right now.
Well, I guess, it starts with the electronic calendars. You have your agenda and, people see a free spot in your agenda, they send you an invite, and then, you start your day that you have one meeting after the other, one meeting after the other. And guess what? Then the time for preparation, for reflection, for strategic thinking goes as you ended up, filling your day with one meeting after the other. And so when you do have an external one, you say, oh, well, actually, we're going to discuss money. So I should be putting some time to prepare. But when you just have, 8 meetings, one after the other, you may struggle to reflect that this is an important one. And this is going to have an impact on, whether your project gets approved or not, how much freedom you're going to have in negotiating a deal or other kind of important decision that may happen in corporate life.
Hello, my friends. Before we get back to today's episode, I want to ask you a question. Have you ever wondered how to elevate your team's negotiation game and how you can help the folks on your team have better, difficult conversations? At the American Negotiation Institute, we offer transformative keynotes and workshops tailored to empower professionals with top-tier negotiation and conflict resolution skills. Whether it's a keynote for your next event or hands-on training for your team, we've got you covered. Don't just negotiate. Master the art with the American Negotiation Institute. Click the link in the description to find out more. Elevate, negotiate, and succeed.
Introducing the HP AI PC, your powerful AI assistant. Easily search through personal files, gain valuable insights, and make smarter, more informed business decisions. Unlock the future of work today with the HP AI PC, powered by the Intel Core Ultra processor. With the right tools, work doesn't have to feel like work. Learn more at hp.com/AIPC.
Oh yeah, that makes so much sense. So much sense. And I know that you have an approach, a 5P model that'll help you with these internal negotiations. So can you tell us about that?
Well, this is the framework that I teach at business schools, and I call it the 5P model as the initial of the 5 ideas. And the first one is profile the stakeholders. It's really understanding the kind of people that you will be dealing with. You should be doing a bit of research. If you don't know the people you're dealing with, you should be doing a bit of research in the same way that you do it externally. Of course, you do it internally. So maybe check their LinkedIn profiles, understand how long they've been around the company, what level of seniority. Maybe do a stakeholder mapping so that you have a better idea about how they fit inside the organization. Maybe through a connection, find out about their hobby, about their communication styles. So those kind of things that can help you to have an idea about who is the person that you're dealing with. The second element is preparation. So not a surprise what we were talking before. So do take in the time, to reflect about what you want to get from this meeting. Try to anticipate your interest and their interest. And maybe, if it's a multi-party type of discussion, often in internal negotiation, especially if we are talking about influencing as a medium to long-term project, right? Sometimes, it's a one-off kind of things. You want to get the buy-in from the plan manager to change the supplier for packaging. But sometimes, it's more like a mid to long-term initiative. And in those kind of situations, there are multiple stakeholders. There are a number of people that, you have to get an agreement with the finance director, the marketing director, the supply chain director, etc. So understanding, the interest and priority of the different people around the table is the kind of things that we should be doing, as part of the preparation. The third idea in my model is what I call practice adult-to-adult relationships. What do I mean is that very often the people that are in commercial roles, they may end up having to interact with people that are more senior than them. Sometimes 2 levels higher or 3 levels higher. Maybe, let me share a personal story that explains the story of the adult-to-adult relationship. It was 2005. 2005, I had recently joined a multinational company as a procurement director for Europe. My boss gave me the task. Really, you should get this business unit to start working with procurement. Because there was a big business unit that was not collaborating with procurement, right? It was 2005. Procurement was not seen very positively. And if people could do their own kitchen and make their own decision without procurement, they were happier, right? So I went to meet the head of the business unit to establish the basis for a collaboration with procurement. I had recently joined. He had been around for 15, 20 years. I was a director. He was a senior vice president, always extremely elegant, very well known and appreciated inside the company. His name was Michel. As I went to meet Michel, I wanted to give a positive image about procurement. I wanted to give a proactive image of our function. So as we were discussing, says, well, okay, Michel, let me check. I can do this research. Let me get the data. Maybe we can explore this. We had our meeting. All the action were on me. At the end of the meeting, all the action were on me. And Michel didn't really make any commitment on something that he would be doing. And whenever I was doing something, he would raise the bar, ask more things. And this was a way, to delay anything that nothing really concrete was happening in terms of, really starting a serious collaboration between this business unit and procurement. So, as I reflected on this failure, and as I continue to manage senior stakeholders, for another 13 years of corporate life, then I take some lesson. There are a few things that I learned. For instance, one of the typical mistakes that we may make, especially in certain culture. Now we know that some culture are more egalitarian, others are more hierarchical, but if you go and meet a senior stakeholder and you already start using apologetical language, oh, thank you very much, I appreciate that you could find a moment to meet me, etc., you're already positioning yourself as the underdog and the other guy as the top dog, right? Maybe another things that I do is at the first meeting with a senior stakeholder, never bring a presentation, never bring somebody else. Right? The first meeting should be about establishing the human connection. So you're not there staring at the screen and looking at PowerPoint slides. You want to make sure that you talk with a human being. And something that certainly helps is taking the time for a personal introduction. So not only mention, hello, I'm Giuseppe, I'm the new procurement director, but say, okay, I worked in those company, I did those studies, I have 3 daughters, I was a tennis player, etc., etc. And as you do more of this sharing, is more likely that you are going to identify the commonality, that you're going to find a way where you find something that will make the communication go smoother because you're supporting the same team, or because you both have 3 daughters, or something like this. Another advice that I will give to our listener is make sure that from the first meetings, there are action for both parties. The action for both parties, even if the action that you give, that you allocate to the senior stakeholder is a small one, maybe it is about, I don't know, sending you the strategy, or checking with one of their direct report whether something is possible or not. This action taken by both sides, from one side is a way to evaluate, right? Usually you give a positive judgment. Oh, well, thank you, Michelle, I appreciate this. But he also gives the opportunity for incremental action. So, as you start to do something, that's okay, let's do the next. Let's say, it's likely that you go to a senior stakeholder and you say, I want you to do this, right? Probably it's not going to work well. But as you start in the path of collaboration, then doing the first action creates the basis for doing the next one. Okay, maybe I'm talking too much on this. Maybe one last one. One last one on this one. As much as possible, when you're meeting senior stakeholder, meet them in a neutral place. Go for lunch together. Have a coffee at the cafeteria. You see, if you go to their office, I remember me going to the office of Michelle, the secretary was there to screen whether, it keeps you waiting. Then you go in, he's sitting at the big desk and the big chair. You are sitting on the small chair on the other side. It already creates this balance of power. If instead you're meeting at the coffee place, that's much more easy to create this adult-to-adult relationship that I was referring to.
Giuseppe, this is a masterclass. This is so good. I want to spend some time here talking about practicing the adult-to-adult relationships. I think that's really strong because you're right. There are so many times where we unintentionally give away our power and leverage interpersonally in these interactions because we're setting up a scenario where we're creating a power dynamic that just constantly reinforces the essentially higher status of them versus you, which makes it more likely for you to be deferential and then makes it more likely for them to get what they want. And it doesn't get them to respect you as an equal partner in this process. And the ways that it happens can be so subtle. So you talked about setting yourself up to be the underdog, being overly deferential in the introduction. Oh, thank you so much. I know you're so busy. You're busy too. You have an important job function too. So we need to level the playing field there. And then I love the idea of making sure that you're not having a PowerPoint in that first meeting where you're just practicing connecting as a human, person to person. This is who I am. This is who you are. Tell me about yourself as an individual. And Giuseppe, after we're done with this podcast, we need to talk tennis. I didn't know you like tennis too. So that's great. So now we're connecting. And then again, such an important thing, action for both parties, because if you are the only person leaving the meeting with action items, essentially they are treating you as their employee. Yeah, Giuseppe, go get me those documents, fetch me those documents and bring it back. No, okay, you have some homework too. You need to do something. We're equals. I'm not working for you in this situation. And then lastly, meeting at a neutral place. I think this is something that people often forget because we just often default to whoever makes the first decision. Yeah, just swing by my office. That's the easiest thing for them to say, but then we don't think about the consequences of doing that. Now you are at the gatekeeper. They have to determine whether or not you're worthy to see the royalty. Then you go up, they're sitting on their throne and you're sitting at the kids' table, and it just makes everything look bad. So this is really, really important because these are the subtleties that people miss that have a significant impact on the negotiation.
Yeah. Thank you, Kwame. Let me quickly finish the 5P model, and then, we go there. I think, step number 5 is persuade them. And I think, I'm not going to get started on the persuade them at this stage because, of course, there are plenty of ways that you can do to persuade other people. And, from thinking about what's in it for them, talking about their language, make them feel good, recognize their needs and expectation, tell them something that they don't know. There may be a number of subtleties that you can do to persuade, but probably this will take another podcast, just to talk about the podcast. And maybe let me go with the last one, which is preserve the relationship. Typical mistake we make is when we need somebody, then we go and talk to them. And then, we move to something else. We disappear from their life for 2 years. Then we go back, say, hello, Peter, my friend, can we do this project together? And guess what? And, let's face it, the two of us, we did our last podcast 2 years ago, but in the meantime, we continue to stay in touch, because, we appreciate each other, and then, we exchange, we reflect, we do a LinkedIn Live, we exchange ideas on a book, on things, and that's something that keeps the relationship alive. So if you want to continue to have good relationship with your internal stakeholder, have a keep in touch strategy, from time to time, go for lunch, go for a coffee. Maybe, you just heard a great podcast from Kwame, you share it with your stakeholder and say, listen, you may enjoy this podcast, and you share it with them. And especially, of course, the biggest way to preserve the relationship is be available when they need help. When there is a crisis, when there is something that doesn't quite work, of course, you want to be able that you are available for the people that they may be contributing to your success. So I guess, I wanted to give you the overview. Now we can go more in depth into one topic or the other as you prefer.
I love this, Giuseppe. And I think without a doubt, my favorite piece of advice that you gave is sending episodes of the Negotiate Anything podcast. I like that. Listeners, pay attention to that one. So that's good. But when it comes to preserving the relationship, the thing that's really, really great about this is two things. First of all, it's the intentionality of it. So you're not just going to leave it up to chance. You're going to be intentional about saying, okay, I care about this person. I care about the relationship. I'm going to actually make time to get this done. And I think a lot of times we're hesitant to do that because it doesn't seem natural, where we're saying, oh, shouldn't it just be organic? Shouldn't human relationships be organic? Well, let me tell you, a couple of months ago, Whitney called me out for not taking her on as many dates as she wants to go on. And so now we have a schedule where I take her out on dates. That doesn't cheapen the relationship. It shows that I care enough to be intentional about making sure that we keep in touch. So having an actual strategy for the relationship management, that's important. And then at the end of the day, we're just being helpful, being available, and being good business colleagues, right? It's a true friendship at the bottom of it. We understand that we're brought together for business purposes, and we're not going to lose sight of that. But if we're able to actually see each other human to human, just by helping each other out and spending time together when there isn't something at issue, that just helps the relationship go forward and makes the difficult conversations easier in the future.
Exactly. Let me say a very simple one, which becoming more difficult now that many people are working from home. As you increase the amount of time to work from home, and there is less opportunities to connect in the office, at the cafeteria, at the water fountain, etc. Maybe you want to, the days that you go to the cafeteria, don't go for lunch always with Kwame. Kwame is a great person, and maybe you enjoy to go with Kwame, but do rotate people. Okay, yes, I love to connect with Kwame, but I'm also going to go for lunch with Bill. I'm also going to go for lunch with Margaret. I'm also going to go for lunch with Marie and with Mohamed, because, those are the people that I'm working. And this gives me the opportunity, to have a chat on non-business related items as well as maybe business related items. And that's a simple one that we can put in place that can help us, to preserve the relationship with the key people.
I love that. Oh, it's so good. Because again, this isn't something complicated or hard to understand. It's just making sure that we do these things. And then again, somebody might be there rolling their eyes saying, what, the advice is to just be nice to people? Yes, and spend time with them, because what it does is it sets us up for success in the future, because we can really clearly see how building a firm foundation for the relationship makes it so that there's more mutual trust, more exchange of information, less skepticism on their part, which makes it easier for you to influence them and work collaboratively with them at the negotiation table. When you're working collaboratively with your internal business units, now you can negotiate much more effectively with the suppliers. It's all connected. And I think we can often think so tactically that we lose sight of the bigger picture.
Absolutely.
This is great. Giuseppe, every single time you come on the podcast, you are a fan favorite, especially for folks in the supply chain industry. And I know people are saying, okay, I need to get some more Giuseppe in my life. So can you let them know how they can get in touch with you and learn more about what you're doing?
Well, I am also leading a company. It's a training company. It's called CABL, and the website is cabl.ch. And with this company, there are a number of professors from Harvard, from Oxford, from Yale that collaborate with me with this company. So our joint mission is to bring the best practice to corporate customers. And what is nice is that, we also have complementary type of skills. So depending on what you need, then you may say, well, for this one, maybe the best one is Dylan. For this one, there is Stevenson. For this one, there is Owen. And then, we can serve our customers in the way that best meets their needs.
This is great. Giuseppe, I really appreciate you taking the time with us, my friend, and safe travels to the Philippines. I'm really excited for you.
Thank you very much. I'm just going to the airport the train leaves in 40 minutes. So just the time to get ready and off we go. And then I have the flight in 2.5 hours. So really tight.
Congratulations, you've just joined an elite club. By listening to a full episode, you're now officially on the Negotiate Anything team. So welcome aboard. What most team members do is they subscribe to the podcast because that allows them to automatically get the latest episodes of the show. The best things in life lie on the other side of difficult conversations. Keep learning, keep practicing, and keep getting better. Your relationships will improve, your career will soar, and you'll have the confidence you need to get the most out of these crucial conversations. Again, thank you for joining the team. We're excited to have you, and I will see you in the next episode. I'll catch you later.